So, this is where we left off with our jungle platformer. If I run this, it's not very thrilling right now. Still, WASD keys haven't worked yet. You can see right now there's a mismatch between my hitbox and my character, so it's not like mapping over the center of the character, it's moving the character there, so I've got to work on that a little bit. And he's just kind of always in the idle animation, he doesn't face the other way. And that's kind of what we're going to work on next. So right now the player is just the sprite of the player, has no animations. The player box actually has the idle animation. The player box has the platform behavior and scroll 2 added to it. The tile just has the solid behavior added to it, and then the background we just have stretched across on the background layer. So what we're going to do now is we're going to fix some of the problems about getting the player to face the other way and getting other animations in so we can have more than just a character bobbing his head up and down. So what we're going to do is we're going to add in input for the keyboard. So I'll double click on the background and add in the keyboard. That way we can start coding some event sheets to it. Keyboard object has been added. Now what we can do is add an event for the keyboard on key pressed. Let's see. I think they changed it now. So now it's on key. Yeah, on key pressed is here. So what we'll do is we'll say on key pressed, and we'll do right arrow. We're going to add an action, and I think left arrow would be better to do first, but we'll do right arrow first. Right arrow, add action to the player, and the action we're looking for is mirrored, and we're going to set mirrored to not mirrored for right, because he's facing to the right already. I'm going to copy this line with Control-C, paste it with Control-V, double-click on this to change it to the left arrow, and change it from set mirrored, from not mirrored to mirrored. So that way it'll face the opposite way. So now if I check this out in the platformer, when it loads up, now my character can at least face the other way when he's moving the other way. We still have some jumping to work on and collision detection to work on, but that's good improvement for now. I can't help you with where your game was. I can say you can go to yesterday's live stream and recreate it, or you could do a better job saving stuff and finding it where it needs to be. Look and browse, try and sort by details so you can find it by date. But from there, you got to be able to manage your files. So, adding more animations. Now, this one's going to be a lot of repeating what we did yesterday. So I'll talk my way through the first one, and then I'm going to just do the next ones without so much talking. One thing I want to do here is they make the suggestion that on the layout, the window size of this 854 by 480 is not very good. They say 800 by 600. That's still pretty small. I'm going to go 1,000 by 1,000. And watch right here. This boundary is going to update. And so now I can see a little bit more of the screen. And maybe I'll set the window size. This was over here in Project Properties View. Maybe I'll even do it like 1,500 by 1,000. To get a little bit more. So now when I play the game, I start off by being able to see a little bit more of where the player is actually going.
Oh, and then you can see the gaps in between the blocks.
Exactly. But now I got to work with my level because I can't get anywhere. So there's my player starting. Gives us a little bit better view of the window. Now we know where we're going to go and jump. So we want to edit the player, and we want to add at least for right now 1, 2, 3, 4 more animations. So I'm going to go double click the player from the objects tab. It'll open up the player. And in this animation window, I'm going to add all the animations that we're adding. So this first animation is going to be called idle to run. And now I'm typing it in with the spaces there because watch what the program does for me automatically. When I hit enter, it changes it, no spaces, idle to run. I went with lowercase idle, so I'm going to stick with lowercases and use camel case for all my animation names. So add animation here, run. Add another animation, jump from run. And then add another animation, jump from stand. So as I have this here, each one of these now is just an empty animation that we have to slice up like we did yesterday. So idle to run, all of these things here, we want to right click, I'm on idle to run, import frames from sprite strip, and I'm going to browse in the player folder and find that idle to run image. And there's idle to run. It knows there are 7 frames. I'm going to delete the existing animation, and we have the same deal that we have. Shift click to crop all the empty space for all frames, so it tightens everything in a little bit. Then I'm going to go to the origin, press number 2 on the keypad, and maybe move it a little bit so that it's towards the middle of the character. And then right click and apply to whole animation. And same thing for this one. The reason why my sprite marker isn't in the whole thing is because it should be over to the middle now. And I'm going to apply that to whole animation as well. So I've just added my idle animation here, but notice on the idle animation, I still have it as 5 frames per second, no loop. And I don't know if that's the speed that we want. So idle to run, we're going to check the frames and set the properties. We want this to happen in 15 frames per second, so it's going to move from idle to run. But once you're idle to run, so you're standing still and then you start running, you can see what's happening. You don't want this to repeat. This happens once when your character is getting going, and then it should kick into the running loop animation. So when I go and import frames for the running animation, this one's down at the bottom. When I import frames from the running animation, this one we will want to loop. But same thing, it comes in with all that extra white space. Shift click and crop to tighten up all those frames. I'm going to move the origin point towards the center of the character's feet, and I'm going to apply that to the whole animation. And for this one, I do want it to loop, because when he's running, I want it to be able to keep going for a while. And then the speed for the run, I want it to be also 15 frames, 15 for the speed. So I'm pretty sure that's in frames per second. It is. So now I have idle to run, idle to run, run, jump from run I'll do next. Same process. Frames from sprite strip. This one is jump from run. Get rid of the existing empty frame. Shift click to crop everything. Change the origin to the middle of the feet, or I'm going to go like with like the middle of like the tiki body. So my origin will be there. Right click and apply to whole animation. And there may be some where it's off by a little bit, but for our purposes, it'll be fine. So there's jump from run. On jump from run, I want to set the speed also to 15. And then jump from stand. Same process, right click. Import frames from sprite strip. Jump from stand. Replace existing empty cell. shift click to crop everything. Adjust the origin point to be centered underneath the tiki mask. And then right click over here to apply to whole animation. Okay. Sam, get your game up. Come on, let's go. From here, the jump from stand, this is the only one that's going to have 22 frames per second because it's a little bit more animation inside here, jump from stand to happen. So 22 frames for that, and if I look over everything, idle has 9 frames with a loop. Idle to run, 15 frames, no loop. Run, 15 frames, yes loop. Jump from run, 15 frames, no loop. And jump from stand, 22 frames, no loop. So now we've added all these animations in, but we've got to figure out the conditions under which the character does these animations. Do you need a little bit of time to finish the animation stuff? Okay. I'm going to just kind of see where everyone's at and leave it here for a minute. Sam, can I hop on and help you out? Can I hop on and help you out? I don't know if you copied the stuff yesterday. Were you here yesterday or you're absent? Okay. So then, did you copy all the images? So on here, you got to go get the images from the hall share. In Technology and Engineering. In Game and Web. Here's the media bundle package, which has a bunch of different noise effects, sound effects. We're just going to copy the whole folder for the Jungle Platformer. And then inside here, you've got Game and Web, Construct. We're going to make a new folder. Jungle Platformer. We can paste those images in here. And then while we're pasting those in, we can go File, Save As. And we can browse to where this is going to get saved in that Game and Web Jungle Platformer folder. So we're going to hit OK here. And then we'll give this a name of alright, so this should save. And then where you are now, this goes really quick. We did like 17 pages yesterday. It's just because it's bloated with images. We did this. We went and added in a tiled background on layer 0, and we browsed to the animation folder, and then there's our background images. This is where we'll get to enemies maybe today. Player we did yesterday, and we're finishing today. But here's the background here. And what's cool about this, as I zoom out, take a look here as we start to make this bigger. You can start to see the image repeat.
What is the speed of all of them?
I'll go over the speed of them all again in a second. So first things first, make sure, Sam, you get this part right here, okay? I'm giving you control again. You can take it from here. All right, speed of all of them. Idle, 9 frames per second. Idle to run, 15 frames per second. Run, 15 frames per second. Jump from run, 15 frames per second. And jump from stand, 22 frames per second. How we doing?
Do we need to make a loop? Yes.
Only idle and run have loop yes. Only idle and run have loop yes. Idle and run. Everything else we do not want looping. Okay. So, I'm going to move on and kind of set up the conditions under which the player will run around and which animation needs to happen. So back on the event sheet, I'm going to add a new event to the player box. And it's going to be platform on moved. So once it starts moving, we've gone from idle, we need to start running. We don't want to start running right away, it'll look glitchy. So what we want to do here is we want to take the action for this is set the player's animation, set animation, and now here's where you have to start typing in the things that we did. This one should be idle to run. So as soon as I start typing in a quote, a drop down appears and I can double click on idle to run. And I know I've grabbed the right one. Play from beginning is default, and then we hit done. So now it's going to set its animation to idle to run, play from beginning when I start moving. The next event we're going to have happen is going to be on the player, and it's going to be on animation finished. We don't want any finished. It's going to be on finished, and when the idle to run animation finishes, it should kick into the run animation. So we're going to do set animation. Run, you got it.
Is it working though? Let's see if it's working. It's working. Oh my gosh. I think he's running a little bit slow.
You might have to tweak your speeds to the way you like it. But now there's also, if we stop here, it's just going to keep running even if you stop moving. So what we have to do is we have to add another event on here to the now this one's back on the player box again, and this one's going to be platform on stopped.
There we go.
So if your player stops, we're going to go back in the player.
So when he stops, he's still running.
Because we're doing that next step right now.
Oh, sorry.
Player box on stopped, set animation for the player to idle again. So it'll go back to loop. So this should work for running. We'll take care of jumping in a second. Let's take a look and see if these three things of code make my character animate. So he's on idle. He starts running. I can jump and I'm still running. And then as soon as I stop moving, he switches to that stopped. So he doesn't just immediately start running. And then as soon as I stop moving, it's there. All right. So we have that set. But now what we want to have happen is we want to pick to do a jump animation. And we've got two types of jumps. So we're going to add a new event to the player box. And it's going to be platform on jump. But now here, we don't want to add an action directly here. We want to add a sub-event. So we can right-click and do, add blank sub-event. It'll start making it down here, and I need two of them. So add blank sub-event. You could have pressed B to get that as well, but that'll just keep going. Or over here, you could have pressed S, and it'll make a sub-event, but it'll force you to put it in here what it needs to be. So for this first one, if the player is moving, then it should be jump from run. If the player is not moving, it should be jump from stand. So I'll go to this action, our condition is going to be player box is moving. And the action we're going to add here is to the player. And it's going to be set animation to jump from run. Now, there is no platform is not moving. But what we can do is we can invert it. So I right-click on the platform is moving condition, and I choose invert. And now this is the same as saying as long as the player is not moving. So we've just inverted that. And then we can kind of copy this one, paste it, and change it from jump from run to jump from stand. So now, if I go and preview this, and I'll give it a second because I know people are looking up here. So on jump, there's two sub-events. The first one is if the player is moving, then it should be jumping from a run. If the player is not moving, it should be jumping from a stand. So that's player box.
When he lands, he looks funny.
And to get that not moving, we right-clicked and chose the invert selector. So let's see what it looks like now with the player running and jumping. Oh, and I didn't make that. I gotta adjust my level so that I can actually play without falling.
Animation continues when you land. If you're doing the run while jumping.
The animation continues while you land.
Oh, it doesn't set back.
We can tweak it as we go along. Right now, it's the concepts I'm more concerned with rather than it looking perfect.
Okay.
Okay. So, test this over here. I adjusted my level a little bit, so now I can actually kind of run and jump in between here. Ah! So, I'm kind of just sliding around ice skating. Ooh, I'm moonwalking.
Yeah, why is it doing that? Now I'm lost.
So, we didn't finish. We have to add in a code for on landed. Because on landed, if we're moving, we want to go back to the running. And if we're not moving, we want to go back to idle. So that was event 7, 8, 9. We're going to do another event here for the player box. And it's going to be on landed. And 2 more sub-events. So I'm just going to do B and B back up here on number 10. So now I've got 10, 11, and 12. The event for 11 is player box is moving. And I'm just going to go and copy the run animation from up here and paste it in down here. This one I'm going to copy the player box is moving and paste it in down here. Right click and choose invert so it's not moving. And if it's not moving, we should go back to our idle animation. So if I check that out again, I can run and jump and land, back to idle. I can run and jump, and I'm back to running. No more ice skating, no more moonwalking. So it was 10, 11, 12. 10 was the on landed event. And then the sub-event is if when you land and you're moving, it's run. When you land and you're not moving, it's go back to idle. All right. How long is the stream been going for now? I don't know if there's a way to check that. Just says live likes.
Wait, what's the speed of the jump animation?
Okay. Do we want like a minute or two to catch up to this?
I think it's 15.
You sure? Yeah.
It's been live for 23 minutes.
23 minutes. I'll go for 7 more. We'll build the enemy, but we're not going to program how it moves today.
Oh, Brad, we math this today. No, why would I study?
Whoa, it's not very cool. Yeah, it's not very cool.
I know, but oh, Ada, you owe me a pencil, please. I need to math fix this.
Colin, were you able to find it? You're starting over.
Okay, that's not.
I was like, I don't know.
Okay.
How do you feel like the X
For a pencil, he
I'll just
search
search
it and gives it to me.
It was right click and choose invert.
Yeah.
So invert does like a not function in here, which is pretty popular in programming. Adam, you're good?
Yeah.
Jason, you're good?
That looks
Your feet are broken?
what?
Can I borrow a pencil?
Let's take a look and see.
You didn't apply the image points. Oh, you didn't copy.
Oh, so when you're running, oh, I just took control. Let's refresh.
crop it then?
Jason, can
Oh, I see. So you on the idle to run. I see what's happening. On yours, on the idle to run, you sink in between.
I got you gummies yesterday.
So specifically for idle to run,
Pencil's not worth one
you have the image point still on the inside. So that's why it looks like you're clipping down in here. So the solution to that is back on the player, back on idle to run. That's why it breaks, is because now it's above the feet, and it should be about here. And we want to right click and apply the whole animation. So now if we check each frame, it's going to be about the middle of the Tiki Torch's head, right? So we're tracking this area right here. And if we run it now, oh, I got to close the editor before we run it. We run it now. No more sinking feet.
No, it's not.
Oh, did we miss one? I saw one clip in there. Hold on. I might have just been messing up.
I think it was him falling off the edge.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna give you control again.
That's why I thought triangles.
All right, so continuing on with today's theme, we're gonna do one more addition to the game. We're gonna make an enemy, but I'm not gonna go through programming him until tomorrow because I don't want this to run to the bell. I want to stop and give you time to like take screen captures, make sure that you're up to date with everything that we have. So it's just gonna be the process of adding the snail. So I'm gonna go through, double click anywhere, add a new sprite, onto main, right click, import from sprite strip, and I'm only going to guide you through the snail enemy. I'm going to expect that you'll be able to figure out how to add the coconut enemy and the bumblebee enemy on your own. So for the snail enemy, here's the snail. 17 cells. I'm going to replace the entire existing animation. Same thing. It's a huge hitbox. So I'm going to hold shift, click crop, and it's going to crop all the frames, making everything here. And for the origin point, I'm going to put it in the middle of the bottom of the snail. And just apply that to the whole animation. So now every frame the snail should be middle of the bottom. And then the frame speed, we're only going to have one animation for this one. I'm going to put up to 15 frames in a second. And I think that's it, but we'll program other stuff here. So let's take a look and see how that actually looks. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So here's the snail right on the ground there. We'll run, and he should just be idling. Ah, I didn't loop my snail. So my snail animates once and then stops. So I've got to go back into sprite. Oh, there's another mistake. Loop for the snail should be yes. And then it shouldn't be called sprite. It should be enemy snail. So now if I run this again, bring this back over here. There's my little snail waiting to slide back and forth across. And then we've got to figure out, like, you know, we'll do Mario Brothers. When we jump on it, it dies. When we hit it from the side or it hits us from the side, we get hit. We get hurt.
But the snail, you should be able to stand on the snail because then it's right?
You should be able to stand on the shell, like maybe it has hit points.
Yeah, maybe you can just throw the shell.
Add something you can add in afterwards. That's something I'm not going to program right now. Okay? All right.
And then every 30 seconds it shoots spikes.
That's long to get into. That's going to take us too long. I'm going to stop the live stream here and say that tomorrow we're going to program what happens when the player hits the snail.